Hey there, folks. Wrel here. Today's going to be a very special episode with somebody who I consider my mentor, and he and I are going to talk about efficiency or lack thereof, and kind of just have a nice nice interview slash discussion slash topic that we can kind of muse about. And maybe, hopefully, this will apply to some of your guys' lives, and it will give you the opportunity to maybe make some adjustments if you feel that it's necessary, and at the very least you can watch the gameplay in the background and just enjoy that. So yeah, my special guest here is actually, how do you want to introduce yourself?
Just Ken.
Ken.
Yep.
All right, that'll work. So Ken has been I don't know how much your background should we talk about?
Whatever you'd like to share. Yeah, you can explain a little bit about,
Okay, so Ken is a small business owner, and he's been doing this for how many years?
Oh man, over probably about 22 now.
22.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a long time. So he knows what it takes to survive and what it takes to adjust with all the changes and business climates, and just running a business in general is it's a it's a very trying experience, I'm sure. But a part of that is knowing how to maximize your efficiency, and keep things. You cut costs, and you cut time. Power or workforce. I don't know what you would want to say, but yeah, I'll just let you go off on it because I'm kind of rambling at this point.
Well, it's kind of funny because you talk about how much times have changed. When I first got involved in business, I had a pager. The pager would go off and have a phone number, and then you'd have to find a payphone because
Right.
it was actually predated even analog cell phones when I first started. So, and now, a big part of business is just this flow, constant flow of information, that's just flying around, and you're just so connected in so many ways. So maintaining, focus through all of that noise and finding things that are relevant, even the amount of information that you have, back, what I used to do on my commute was I would, I do books on audio, and it would be cassette tapes. And there's kind of a limited selection, there are a couple companies that would do it through mail order, and there are a few accepted authors, people like, Brian Tracy was one who was real big on kind of the things we're talking about, goal setting, clarity. Another one was Stephen Covey. And they would, you'd have this information, and usually it would be passed on to you by someone else who'd been successful in, organizing their life in a way that would allow them to manage themselves the way you have to do if you're entrepreneurial. And now there's just a billion different, just resources available. So it's figuring out what you should actually be listening to and what works and what's just noise in the background. It's challenging.
Yeah, I find that an overload of information is it's a big downside to me. And it's not that I don't know what to look for, it's that I just keep getting distracted by, oh, this looks cool, oh, this seems interesting, and then I just spend time on it when I may not need to. I should probably just be focusing on what I was originally planning on doing. And yeah,
it's one of the, actually, you learn in the military, you learn land navigation, and it's actually a really good way to kind of think of it when you're moving through all the information. And the way you would do it is, first of all, you'd have to know what, to use the metaphor, what your north is. What's your destination? What's the direction that you want to move in? And then what you would learn in the military was you wouldn't just decide where the destination was and start moving towards it. You'd do it in legs, and basically you'd shoot what's called an azimuth, where you'd pick a tree that was visible in the distance, you'd adjust, you'd make sure it aligned with where you want to go, and then you move towards it. And when you get there, you stop and you make a course correction, and then so you reorient yourself and you look to the next landmark and you move towards that. And I think a lot of times what happens is, especially watching people who are kind of very, they have a lot of creative energy. They want to be self-directed. They're motivated. What ends up happening is they forget to stop and make those course corrections and kind of look up from where they're going and remind themselves of the destination that they've actually chosen to try to move towards. So, and that's what all the information does. So you're following, I don't know, you're in a Facebook group discussion forum and you're following one thing and all of a sudden it leads to some tangent. And before you know it, you're off in some weird corner of the internet universe and you have no idea how you got there.
Yeah, I actually, as far as, knowing where you want to go and kind of readjusting when you get new information and stuff, I tend to, my goals shift. And maybe they shouldn't. Maybe I should kind of keep, moving toward like a major, like a foundation, I guess. Like fundamentally what I want, but it's just I'll get distracted, and I don't necessarily view it as a bad thing because it gives me the opportunity to create different content and kind of attack the same sorts of things in the same way or in a different way. But it's there's so many distractions that I like to embrace that, and I think it's probably a problem. It's probably a problem.
Well, goals should shift though. I mean, because goals have to be fluid based on the fact that our environment changes so fast. And it's funny. I mean, again, if you were to, they did a study and they looked at like kind of the baby boomers, and they looked at their skill set when they entered the workforce and their skill set when they left the workforce like 30 or 40 years later. And it was basically the same. They were trained in a job, and it was kind of that industrial age model, So they would just do the same thing over and over again until, they got the gold watch and retired and, then went to Florida and played golf, and that was it. So, and now, I mean, if you're applying the same skill set now, 12 months from now, you're going to be obsolete. And especially if you're looking at, I mean, I would imagine even in the gaming world, it's just there's certain core principles you can apply, but as the technology shifts and changes and the interests change, there's, you have to be so fluid, so reactive, you have to be very adaptable. So if you're trying to apply a goal that you set where the environment has changed underneath you, you got to change the goal. So that's not a bad thing at all.
There's as far as like taking the temperature of the community and kind of watching the game change, I tend to I know what kind of content is going to be successful, right? Because people are, they're emotional about it, about this, a problem, or just emphatic about a certain idea that the community has kind of had. There's this like echo chamber that builds up and kind of it just builds momentum, and then it drowns everything else out. And if I know that I can address that, and there will be like a lot of views, and the content will be very interesting and very relevant. But at the same time, it's that sort of thing. I tend to leave it a lot of times. I tend to leave it to other YouTubers because it's easy, honestly. But there's kind of a moral standpoint too. Like I have to know that people they're going to have these opinions right now, and this is very, very, they're just passionate about whatever they're talking about at the time. But is that really what needs to be addressed? Does that really align with what I should be making the channel about? Yeah, I did a video a while back called, it was just a helpful YouTube guide sort of, and it was talking about making content for longevity, and it deliberately talks about making content that isn't, that isn't the controversial, isn't the, that's on the pressure points of the community right now. And I think that's an important idea, or to kind of keep that in the back of your mind, to know when you should be capitalizing on a hot topic, when it's and when not to, to kind of reel back and just buckle down and continue with the same path, moving toward that same destination that you've been working at. I know that was a lot.
No. And it's, and it's kind of funny. I think, and it's one of the things that's kind of interesting now, is when you look at, you have kind of these different approaches, and what you're saying is it's very interesting. You can learn a lot about, how people are approaching, whether it's, their, if they have like an information-based business or a communication-based business. You have the ones that are trying to figure out what they're just like, whatever that hot button is, or, that momentary spike in interest, whatever's going to get the most, retweets. Right. They kind of just follow that chain. So it's very kind of transitory, and then you have others that what they do is they're very clear. They have a clearly defined core purpose, and they react to things, but it's in the context of their purpose, and they're not afraid to say no. And I think that's, one of the things that the more clarity you have, like, for example, no matter what I've done in business, no matter what the process is, there's an underlying personal mission, and that's to positively impact as many individuals as possible within my lifetime and beyond. That's so any decision that I make, any path that I follow, any interaction I have is going to be, it's going to support that as my directive. So that's my personal north, If you don't have that, what happens is you're kind of getting pushed by something that seems interesting, so you get connected to someone else's north for a little bit because it's hot at the moment, it makes sense. And then something else comes along and you get pulled that way. And you're just kind of, you're just that leaf in the river. Yeah. Just getting floated along.
It's, I think that's probably an important lesson. I don't know how much that falls within efficiency, which was, I kind of took it off topic, but that's an important lesson for, especially for YouTubers that are coming up. It's, I don't think that you can build a community on the hot button stuff unless you're, information based, as far as like, news and, like if your content needs to be relevant, needs to be timely, then it makes sense. And that's you have to have already established that relationship with your audience, beforehand, so they know what to expect. But if you're doing, kind of if they start to expect it too much, then when they get bored, they'll just get bored. Like, they won't be there for the community. They won't be there for the person who is speaking. They'll just be kind of there, indifferent, and they're taking from you opposed to being a part of the experience.
Right.
That's what I see a lot when it comes to new YouTubers who are just trying to build their audience and stuff. And it's kind of, you definitely need that north. You need to create a solid foundation that you can build on.
And that's the foundation of the efficiency you're talking about. It's, when you start looking at that 80-20 rule, 80% of your success will come from 20% of your action. So it means that, if you're using YouTube as an example, you're trying to figure out what is the 20% of my potential content that aligns with, my purpose, and is also aligns with what my specific audience is interested in seeing. And if you try to be too broad, actually Seth Godin is great for kind of describing that. He's real big on being clear on the fact that you can be very, very successful in a tiny micro market. That mass marketing is kind of a dead animal. It's prehistoric. It's extinct. So you're better off knowing what you have that you can intensely focus on, and developing that small, loyal tribe, that loyal community that's there with you for the reasons that you've clearly defined. And that's what they're signing on for. And now it allows you to kind of, be a lot more focused in your efforts, because you can kind of, like I said, you can reorient once in a while and say, okay, am I starting to deviate from, you know, what my tribe is looking for? And if so, you can make a course correction. And it all starts with just, you have to have that identity. You have to have those core values, that foundation. And when you have that, as the landscape changes, you can make adjustments that are consistent and continue to move you and your audience in the direction that they want to go. And then what tends to happen is when your tribe will shift or leave, has a lot more to do with them changing. You know,
Right.
so they'll shift in their interests and then they'll leave. But your consistency means that you'll attract new people who are, you know, for however long, could be 6 months, could be 10 years, are aligning with who you are. But you're the rock, you know, you're that bastion of consistency.
All right. Yeah. That's super important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we talk about maybe multiplying your efforts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in what? How about that dog in the background? Yeah. Hi, Gracie. So, in what respect are you thinking? Like, give me an example.
Okay. Well, I've been so personally making a video for YouTube is just like it's taking way longer than I give it credit for, because life is always getting in the way.
Sure.
It's and I think I don't want to use that example maybe in particular, but just how can we deal with what life is throwing at us to make us, you know, maybe make us healthier, maybe make us keep us on task, just finding a way through just what we're dealing with. My thoughts were to kind of go into, you know, multiplying your efforts, but if you have another way to approach that, then feel free.
Well, I guess, okay, so John Maxwell, who's written about 1 billion books on leadership, and one of them is, I think it's called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Personal Growth. And his whole point behind it is our success doesn't come from what we do, it comes from developing who we are. And, you know, so it's starting with being clear on knowing, like for me personally, it's 3 things have to happen every day. I have to care for myself physically, you know, do something healthy for my body, do something healthy for my mind, and do something healthy for my spirit, you know, spiritually, whatever that can be. It could, you know, for me, it's meditation. For someone, it could be prayer. It could be listening to music. It's just, you know, that time where you kind of, you know, find your emotional center, something that you read, study, learn, play that grows your mind, you know, because it's a muscle just like your body. And then, you know, doing something that develops you physically so that you're maintaining your physical health, which keeps your energy levels up, all of those kind of things. So I know that those 3 things have to happen on a daily basis. And a lot of times what you can do is you can start getting creative in ways that you can pair them up. So, you know, I like to for cardio, I ride a bike a lot, as you know. So that's a great time to listen to audiobooks. So I download a book on business or marketing or education or, you know, whatever the topic is. And now I'm in the rhythm of pedaling, especially in wintertime. Like now I'm stuck in a basement going nowhere. Yeah. So, you know, I either have a book on a mount on my iPad and I'm reading it while I'm spinning, or I'm listening to, you know, a book through my phone. So I'm feeding my mind while I'm conditioning my body at the same time. You know, since my wife and I are business partners, there are times where we'll go for our walk our dog, and we'll choose to take that time as a business strategy meeting. So we're not only getting to walk our dog and, you know, be outside and get a little exercise, but we're also sharpening our saw and developing our business practice. And the trick, the hard thing, is figuring out what things fit together effectively and what doesn't. So, and that's always a conversation. So like for my wife and I, you know, the conversation will be, is this walk a meditative walk where it's social and it's about our relationship as husband and wife, or do we want this walk to be our partnership as business partners? And you need to know what you need, and that can change, from day to day. But in the end, I'm telling you, the best way to be effective is to every day nurture body, mind, spirit. Every day. And it doesn't have to be a lot, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes, but Tony Robbins calls it the hour of power. And, if you have that hour of power, that time that you commit to yourself, the level of energy, focus, and engagement you'll have will actually give you time back on the other end. So yeah.
That's, oh man, that's the hardest thing.
Yep.
It definitely is. Like when I don't know why. I don't know why I sit in this chair for so long, all day, like day in, day out. And because it's so easy. I could just like stand up and do something else. I kind of take care of my body because it's easy, right? So I can drop on the floor, do 50 push-ups and then call it quits. And that's because it's easy enough to do, unlike something that's meditation, or unlike reading a book. Like I never read books. Books take too much time, and it's if I were to discipline myself enough to do that, then it could be beneficial. But it's really, really hard to see the benefit when there's kind of this barrier that's in the way.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you have any advice for people who I guess to start moving to get over their own little barriers?
Yes, actually, and there's a couple things, because it's Dan Pink talks a lot about it in a couple of his books. One of them is called Drive, and the challenge we face, and they're finding this more and more now. Just trying to create new habits really is ineffective. So just deciding you're going to be more disciplined and you're going to get up every 30 minutes and do 4 to 5 diaphragmatic breaths. It's not going to happen. You have to find ways to organize your environment so that your environment supports the changes that you're trying to make. So, for example, this one guy, he was just determined he needed to start exercising. So what he did for about 21 days to form the habit, he went to sleep in his exercise clothes, in his workout clothes, with his running shoes right next to the bed. So that basically when he got up in the morning, the first thing he did was he was dressed to exercise. And he found that just that simple thing, it just kind of poked at him enough that it would get him out and moving. Whereas if he got up in his pajamas and he had his cup of coffee, and then all of a sudden you're realizing, oh my God, I got to get ready for work and I got to eat, and the time would just get sucked away. So it's finding those little ways, and I bet you like there's probably apps that, if you're like at your computer for a long time, I bet you there's some kind of app that would interrupt your screen and like, shut it down or make it go blank or something like that.
Yeah, probably.
So, so it forces you to stop. Back when computers were slower, you get your little spinning wheel there where apps were opening or your computer would boot up. Those were signals for me for diaphragmatic breaths, and it's just 3 breaths, 30 seconds. It's meditation. You do that throughout the day and it accumulates. So they did a study with this whole town. They got the whole town to lose weight by putting low-fat milk on sale. So they made it easier to buy milk that had less fat in it by making it cheaper. And then people would go home and low-fat milk was in their refrigerator. And because it's in their refrigerator, they'd drink it, even if it didn't taste as good. They bought it because it was cheaper. They drank it because it was there. They lost weight. So, so you got to kind of look at your lifestyle and say, all right, what's holding me in place and what could help me implement change? And it happens so gradually that I think that's the hardest thing. You don't realize that you're getting better, that you're getting healthier, that you're gaining mental clarity because it happens in such tiny, tiny increments.
That, yeah. If you don't have a recognizable result, the motivation, I guess, is it needs to be intrinsic. But that bit about the environment is really, really interesting because I think that when people go in with an idea that they need to do something, they'll say that, you know, they'll find ways to make excuses, right? I mean, we all do that. But when it comes down to like going to the gym, like your willpower, like if you don't do it, you can kind of just blame it on, you know, well, I need to be better. But there are other ways to, like, everything runs in concert, and the environmental changes I think aren't given enough credit, because we tend to blame ourselves for our failures, which, you know, it is. But at the same time, they're like, an addict doesn't kick the habit because they decide to kick the habit. You know, they need the support group, and they need to stay away from, you know, the drugs, and they need to stay away from the alcohol or whatever. And if you put the temptation kind of, you know, there,
yep,
then it's easy to get sucked back in. So that's, and you know, what's funny is that, talking about temptation, getting sucked back in, Facebook, email,
yep,
it's so accessible. I can't stop checking my email throughout the day. And I read this thing that it said the lowest amount of stress comes from checking your email, like, at most 3 times a day.
Yep.
And I don't do that. No, I'm addicted to reading comments and everything else. So I check it incessantly. And it seems like it's, you know, it's not a lot of time, but you add it all up, and oh yeah, it is.
Well, and remember, it's every time that you, I can't remember which chemical it is, but there's a hormone dump every time someone sends you an email or responds to a comment. So it's a chemical addiction that our body is producing, you know? So we get a little rush, you know, it's the same rush that you get when you check something off a to-do list. So, you know, I mean, they've done studies on that, where people, if something's not on their to-do list and they did it, they'll write it on their to-do list just so they can check it off, because it gives them that little kick. So you're fighting, you know, an addiction that's kind of built into us, you know, systemically as a human being. So, you know, so it makes it hard. But one of the things that, you know, can help is you think in terms of the thing you have to be able to do is just the moment where you start, where you actually take action. Because I mean, I guarantee not many people go to the gym, get to the gym, and then don't work out. Right. You know, so it's not the 30-minute workout. It's the decision to go and start the workout. It's the decision to, you know, stand up and do some breathing. It's the, you know, whatever it's going to be. It's the decision to grab, you know, I mean, I do NutriBullets every morning. They taste like crap, you know. It'd be so much easier to eat a donut. I make sure there's no donuts in the house, you know, and the decision is to take out the lettuce and the flaxseed and the fruit and dump it all in the thing. And, you know, and once I make the decision and I make it, it's easy enough to drink it, even though it doesn't taste good. So, but I don't think about the act of drinking it or the thought of, you know, eating something that would taste better. I just focus on the act of doing what I'm doing, and then the rest of it just takes care of itself.
That's awesome. I think that's that's probably a good place to end the episode here.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to thank Ken again for hanging out and for giving us these insights.
Anytime.
So I'm kind of interested in hearing what your guys' first step would be. You know, where would you start? You know, what would you start on? If there's something in your life that you feel is kind of, you know, out of whack, how do you feel that that you can maybe bring yourself to a better place, maybe nourish your mind, your body, and your spirit? And yeah, there's definitely a lot to think about. I know this was a long episode, but I feel it's very, very worth it. If not for the rest of, you know, 50,000 of you, then definitely for me. But yeah, so if this video has been interesting, helpful, or entertaining, please feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and I think we'll just catch you later. Yeah, thanks very much, folks. Wrel signing off. Huh.
Cool.
Thank you.
No problem. No, there's a lot of stuff there. If people actually really listen, you know, there's some things in there that they could take with them, and and act on. And what you said at the end is really that's the key. You just got to pick something and start, and just that's the hardest part, but that's where all the results come from.
Yeah. That's I find so many ways to keep myself from starting.
Oh yeah.
It's hilarious. It really is.
Masters of it.
Yeah. Well, society isn't exactly doing us any favors.
No. Well, yeah, because if you think about it, if someone can make money off of the fact that you're distracted, or that we're, as a culture, we're easily distracted and they're getting profit from it, then they're receiving a result that's going to make them keep doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.